at the past year prevalence of physical or sexual intimate partner violence. This is among partnered young women, which, as we know, are the norm. Most of our young women in the sample were partnered. And we see here that about 17% were reporting sexual partner violence past year only, and 23% physical IPV. These are, there's a little bit of overlap, as you imagine, so we've got about 28% of young women experiencing partner violence in the past year alone. So this is very high, even when we think about our national data and our global data on this topic. So, and this is why we're all gathered here today, to improve our programming and our policies and strengthen our systems to prevent and respond to IPV and other forms of GBV. What was the overlap? It's always important to understand, are we seeing physical violence? Are we seeing sexual violence? What we see here is that most of the women that told us about sexual IPV also experienced physical violence. We see this all around the world when similar patterns. And this means if we are encountering, as programmers and our medical clinics, if we're encountering people that have experienced sexual partner violence, they likely also have physical violence going on in the home as well, or with their partners. So really important to be thinking about this. And then how does this compare? What is the totality of the forms of GBV that are affecting young women? We heard earlier about how important it is to look at sexual harassment, as well as non-partner sexual violence and intimate partner violence. What we see here is that we have about 4.8% of our sample reporting an experience of non-partner sexual violence. Perhaps some underreporting here, but this was the lowest form that was reported, even with all of our ethical protections, our best practices and survey measurement, and the training that is provided, the extensive training that is provided to our team on how to do this work well. The IPV, which you just saw, was the 28%, so that's really in the middle, about 1 in 4 women. And then when we look at sexual harassment, 71%, right? So this is a big problem. That's why we're here today. I think we know that this is a problem. But then when we see this number, we see, wow, this is so normative in the lives of young women in Nairobi. So what did that sexual harassment look like? We tested out some new measures that came to us through the eMERGE repository to really understand what are the types of experiences. You can see that the most common is being stared at or leered at. And then we see a lot of unwanted sexual comments, jokes, and gestures. This probably really resonates with all of us in the room. But seeing these numbers tell us how important it is, how actionable this is for us to really respond to, together with all of the brain power and talent in this room. And you can see a variation in some of the other forms of experiences as well. The touched, grabbed, or pinched, that would be one of the more egregious forms. We're seeing that at about 1/3. Okay. We also always want to understand, how safe do people feel? Where are they feeling safe and unsafe? And you can see here that people, despite the high prevalence of IPV, are feeling very safe at home, and it's much less so in the public spaces. That's where the safety perception is the lowest for young women. Again, reflecting what we just saw around sexual harassment. As we think about how to improve services and assure safety for women so they can be economically active, so they can be mobile and come and go, the safety perceptions at home and in public are so important for us in that process. I will offer you a few qualitative findings on women's safety, although I think that reading these